Hello, Internet. I am coming on here today to talk to you more about life coaching and what it is exactly that I think it is and how it kind of manifested in my life and why you might want to think about hiring a coach, potentially me as your coach. So today I'll just give you an example of how my life has probably been unfolding the whole time, but I'm really present to how it is unfolding. And the word I will use to describe that best is synchronicity. And so today I had an experience of synchronicity, and how it unfolded was that Tuesday morning, I was at 5:45 a.m. I was driving to the pool, which is just a short, 5-minute drive in my hometown. And I drove by a bus stop, and there was somebody sitting in the bus stop in the cold at 5:45 a.m. It's January, in the dark. And I had a flashback to being, I don't know how old this person was, they were all bundled up, but I had a flashback to being in my early 20s and being a real mess, being a disaster. I was living in a basement suite. I had been Dean's vacationed out of university. I had major trauma going on in my life and in my nervous system. I was drinking too much. I was not well. I was not well mentally, emotionally, physically, or spiritually. I was going to a job that I absolutely hated at a law firm, and because parking was basically would use up my whole paycheck, I was going to the bus stop to take the bus to and from downtown Edmonton every day, and it was winter and dark and sitting there, and I remember feeling the biggest sense of despair I've ever felt. And I had this moment, and it's happened frequently now in my healing journey, where I traveled back in time to that moment, and I imagined myself today, me in this body, sitting next to that version of myself and offering comfort, offering hope. And I had this is kind of the spiritual part. I had this sense that I've been doing that all along. Maybe the reason I have struggled throughout my life, for the most part of my life, with suicidal ideation, like intense despair, intense existential crisis from the time I was like 10 or 11 years old, which I think is a huge thing I came here to learn about. I mean, I really believe we choose our path and we have lessons that we need to learn. And I happened to choose a life where my two brothers were dying basically for most of their lives, and they have since actually died, but they've spent 20 years doing it actively with a degenerative condition. And living alongside of that as the older sister, it caused me to really question my own worth, my own value, like my own deservedness. Like, why am I okay? Who says I get to be okay? And so I created this inner chaos and drama where I intentionally turned the screws of my own suffering so that it felt fair, I think, is ultimately it. So I created my own sense of despair and hopelessness. And as an adult, what I've been doing is now rewiring that, repatterning that, learning about that, growing, evolving, expanding, like I said, which is what I came here to do, and going back in time. And it happened on Tuesday morning at 5:45 a.m. to be with that despairing Marin on the bench. And perhaps, I mean, physics would say there is no time, no linear time anyway. Perhaps I really did do that. Perhaps that despairing Marin actually felt the hope that I sat down and offered her. And, the words that I offered her were, hang in there, it gets better. Like, I promise it gets better. It's not always going to be like this. You're not always going to feel this way. And I know it's true because I'm sitting here today at 42 talking to my 20-year-old self saying it gets better. And I've had opportunities. I had a really, really, really intense, bizarre one. I'm getting off track with the synchronicity. I will come back to it. I had a really intense, bizarre experience where it was in my first shamanic training workshop where I saw myself. I was by a river and this Marin with rainbow hair showed up, future Marin, to talk to me. And I was like, rainbow hair, what the hell? And then a couple of years ago, I was experimenting with hair colors and all this, blues and purples and pinks and all the things. And I looked in the mirror one day and I was like, oh my God, it's Marin with rainbow hair. She was real. This really happened. It was just this kind of moment, jarring moment of, I think it's real. I think we do time travel. And then, so the synchronicity. So this morning, I'm really starting the new year with a strong intention to grow my life coaching practice, to step back into that, to hold a 6-month container. I want to go back to working with people in a very intense way. So I'm not doing one-off coaching anymore. I want to do 6-month sessions, weekly or bi-weekly. And it's basically, as soon as I set that intention, I got my first 6-month container client who, through a series of magical steps, found me immediately, and it's amazing fit, and it's like such deep confirmation that this is the work that I'm meant to be doing. But I'm still circling around, like noticing like who I'm attracting, who I'm calling in, who, like, really I want to be clear about building a brand, building a platform. Who am I calling? And when people in the past, I've been coaching for 10 plus years, and when people have said, who's your target audience or your ideal client, my whole body freaks out. I don't know. Don't ask me that. I'm starting to look back and say, who have I connected with? Who have I helped? So I'm reading a couple of resources. I'm working through some resources to help me like do daily practice of like sitting with this idea of a niche or a target market or an ideal client or whatever, and so that I can articulate it, know how to describe what I do at a party, know how to describe it online. So here I am being seen, and like I'm figuring it out. And that doesn't mean that I don't believe in what I do, because I have this 6-month client who is like freaking knocking it out of the park every Friday and makes me want to cry every single time we work together. It's so beautiful to share my hard-fought wisdom and ongoing wisdom, and the being a channel for, I think coaching actually is being a channel for universal intelligence. It has nothing to do with me, and being willing to notice and speak to what comes forward, and trusting in synchronicities, and trusting that you're always gonna have what you need to serve if that's your highest intention, which is how I coach. So anyway, the synchronicity from, I gotta get my journal. Yeah, see, that was really pro. I'm gonna get better at these YouTube videos, I promise. The synchronicity from this morning, and going back to love up my 20-year-old self on the bench, was the book that I was reading this morning, which is Tad Hargrave's Niching Nest. Highly recommend. He's an Edmonton marketing guy. I've worked with him in the past. He is a 10 out of 10. I've been to his workshops and stuff like that. I really shout out to you, Tad. You're amazing. So here's the quote from this morning after my experience from this week. I've recently been thinking that perhaps the purpose of growing up is to become the adult you needed when you were younger. Yep. I have over there a little note that says vlog about the timelessness piece and how we actually can go back and heal our younger selves. So I just think that's so cool. Synchronicity is so cool. And what I want to tell you is, this is how coaching works for me. Is it works through a series of miracles, unexplainable synchronicities that show up, and then I'm able to turn around. I'm able to receive the learning and the teaching because I have a morning practice and a daily practice that is pretty well established, pretty intense. I show up every day to do the work. It's my number one priority. It's, you know, and I think I will do a little video about how could you build one of those, because I think that's one of the gifts I have to bring. The other thing I wanted to talk about with respect to coaching is I feel like I've talked about fierce integrity before on some of these videos. I wrote this book, rather it came through me. That's truly how it feels. And it came through me for me. 10 years ago, when it first started coming through, I was not living my truth. I wasn't. And after I had a pretty intense experience with ayahuasca, I was able to actually finally acknowledge that to myself and start to make the changes that were required, which were, and they felt huge because they were huge, right? Leaving a marriage is a huge deal. Finding a new home is very dysregulating. You know, becoming sober has been a part of it for me. I'm coming up on 7 years in March. Being sober is a huge deal. And I'm still unfolding. I'm still figuring this out. You know, triathlon training is part of it for me right now. And this AIP paleo, you know, diet is a part of it for me right now. So what I want to help people with is journey to find their own deepest truth that perhaps they've hidden from themselves or are too afraid to look at because they know it will require some major changes, hence the 6-month container. I don't know what everybody's truth is. That's not my job, but I want to go into the journey with the right people, with the people that are a good fit for me to uncover what that might be, and then hold the space for them to have the courage to make those changes, to get really super clear about the why. In my own life, I've had a really intense journey with food. Had an eating disorder as a young person that lasted for 9 years, a series of binging and purging, so mostly bulimia, but episodes of starving myself. And then I was obese. I went to the other end of the scale where I was, you know, very unhealthy. I was not well, and punishing myself with exercise, and it wasn't working, and a whole bunch of diets. I've done every diet under the sun, and just like not a healthy relationship with food. And I find myself today in the deepest place of integrity around my diet and around my exercise and around my lifestyle and around my wellness than I've ever been before. And I was trying to figure out, like, how the hell did I have a 6-pack. I've never had a 6-pack in my entire life, ever. And I was thinking about it this morning. At one point, a couple years ago, maybe 2 years ago, I had stuck pictures of people with 6-packs on the fridge as motivation to do a Whole30 and stay on a Whole30. Perry and I successfully did a couple of Whole30s, but we weren't able to stay on it because it was this ego-based reason. I want a 6-pack. Like, that's your ego, totally, right? And it wasn't strong enough to, you know, ward off the food cravings and the off-roading potential and all the other things. And so I laughed because I was like, well, really, I've been on this journey since July and it's not actually hard. And the reason why it's not hard is because I'm so freaking clear about the why. The 6-pack is a side benefit and I do like it. I'm so delighted by it. It's just so cool. Like, it's such a neat, my body is so cool. I'm astonished by my body. It's amazing. And I love the way it feels. It feels really healthy. It feels really lean. I feel so good. I have lots of energy. I just feel amazing. But that's all not the point. The point was, it started with this deep desire to uncover the source of all of these symptoms. I was having hormonal symptoms. I was having migraines. I was having pain, inflammation. I was like, oh my God, if this is aging, like, no thanks. And then I turned to spirit for help. Spirit started through dreams, giving me insights and messages. I figured out I had inflammation. It figured out I needed to target a low inflammatory diet. I circled back to paleo. I started that. I got tweaked and refined. I did the food sensitivity testing. So those of you who have been following me know this part of the story. And, you know, my body's just so, it's singing. It's so happy. that I've landed in this place of integrity with food. And so that was a big why. And then what started to happen for me is the connection to physical athleticism and goals. And like, I've had a dream of doing Ironman triathlon since I was 12 years old, and I watched my dad do it in Penticton. That dream was born, and I wrote it down on my bucket list, and I literally like let that dream die because I was like, well, I can't run. I have inflammation. I have this thing in my hip and my knee, and I've done everything that I can do, and it's hopeless. And here I am. I ran 17 kilometers yesterday, and I'm signed up to do a half Ironman in the summer, and I will do a full Ironman next year. And I don't even know what to say about that. Like, it feels like it's been a journey, and I'm not a coach for everybody, right? Like, I really am curious about my own human potential and taking intense suffering and existential crisis and transforming and transmuting that into pure potential, boundlessness, like miracles. Like, I've been on that journey. I'm a living, walking alchemist is the word I've been using to explain what I do to people. I am that. I have done that in my own life, and I want to help other people do it. I want to be the container. I want to go into the container. I want to hold the container. I want to take people where on the journey, because I believe it's possible, because I've directly experienced it. So if you would like to know more about coaching with me and what that involves, the commitment and the costs and those kinds of things, I invite you to contact me for a 1-hour discovery call, which is no charge. And so we would see if we're a good fit, see why you're contacting me, what resonated, what are you hoping to gain in 6 months, what are you hoping to learn, what are you working on, and let's see if it's a good fit for us. And yeah, I look forward to hearing from you, or sharing. You can share that. Feel free to share this message with anybody you think is a good quality. Be gentle when you share this message. Hey, you end up with divorce. Give it to your husband. You need to do this. Be gentle when you're sharing this message of hope, which I hope it is, with others. Peace to you, and be well.